All right, and we're live, I think. I hope. Let's assume we are. All right, welcome everyone to another Spec 3.0 meeting. Today we actually have a lot of people joined, which is awesome. So before jumping into the agenda, is there anyone who wants to add something or say something beforehand?
I just have a question. Do you have any links to a node or anything that I should be looking at for this, or not really?
The only one we have is the agenda. I added some items regarding the docs stuff, or at least some of the new features. But let's take that when we get to that.
Oh,
agenda.
perfect. This is exactly what I was wondering about. I hadn't noticed the topics that you added. Sorry about that. Thanks.
No worries. Thank you. Anyone else have anything? All right. So we do have a few items on the agenda. I think I want to rotate some things around. So my suggestion is that we start with the old, some of the things that needs to be revised or discussed that we previously talked about, and then we jump into some of the new stuff such as stocks. Is everyone cool with that? Cool. All right, so I'm gonna start with the release schedule, and then Heiko maybe give an update on the request reply stuff and what's missing, what you need help with. And then we can talk about the schema stuff, reference, and then we end with docs. All right, so regarding the release schedule, last meeting we proposed that at least 2 more items are in the works and should be accepted as change to the Spec 3.0. So far, nobody has objected to that. So I would assume that we by now can accept that this is the code freeze. This is what is included in Spec 3.0. We do have an outstanding regarding the schema stuff. But let's see how that discussion goes. But otherwise, I am assuming that this will take effect as of right now.
Okay, yeah, maybe we have to discuss the 216 if it is breaking or not.
Yes. So we'll include that and then figure out what we'll do there. It depends on how the discussion goes, I guess. But otherwise, this is what takes effect off of today. Anyone have anything to add there? Cool. All right, moving on. Request reply stuff.
Yep, sure. I guess this one is merged. So for Spec, it's done. Now I'm focusing on the 6.2 for Spec. And as soon as this 6.2 is done, I have to figure out how I can contribute to Spec JSON and parser to get it done.
Yeah, so as far as I can tell, we have a PR for the JSON schema files that Magic created. We do not have any proposed changes to the parser itself that adds these request reply stuff. Heiko, is that something that you are planning on doing or something you need help with?
For a little bootstrap would be nice, yeah. But in general, I try to get it in the parser because my requirement is to get it into the React UI.
Yeah. Okay. Sounded like a big pause before Fred starts. Well, I guess not. Okay.
No. Accommodating myself.
All right, so we'll need to figure out who want to help there. I'll throw up. I might just create an issue there in the parser that we need to change or add the feature now that it's been added for the spec itself. And let's ping Magic on the JSON schema files and see how active he is on that, or someone else have to take it to the finish line. How does that sound?
Jonas?
Yep.
Can you remind me, is there already a target date for releasing Spec 3?
So everything is kind of outlined within this issue. Let me share it here. So release is scheduled for June.
Ah. Oh, it's gonna be here in a blink of an eye.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else from the request reply side?
None of my side, if there are no further questions.
Yeah, no other things than that. But we should probably now focus on getting spec JSON schemas and the parser to support it, and that's it. I think that should be enough for now.
Yes, sure. As soon as Spec JSON is done, I guess we can start the parser.
Yeah, even before. It's
Okay.
not dependent on the tool.
Parallelize, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so if there's someone can give me a little bootstrapping, then we can go.
You don't have to do it though. So what I'm saying is like we should be doing it, but you don't have to do it, Heiko, if you don't want to. If you want to have a look at the 622, that's completely fine. But you know, like we should have to, as a community, we should look into doing it as well, right?
Yeah, sure.
But I don't feel like you have to do it. I mean, usually the same person that champions the spec issue champions the other ones, but yeah, let's make an exception because you spend a lot of time with this. So
Don't
That
panic,
said,
I
he's
get paid
not-
for.
That said, he's not saying that you shall not do it. So if you
Yeah,
want to,
sure.
exactly,
right,
you
sure.
should do it.
don't feel forced.
All right, moving on. So 6-2, Heiko, do you want to take it?
Yeah, I can try. And I'm not permitted to take over screen. I know.
Now you are, I think.
Yeah, now I am.
Nice.
You can see my screen?
Yes.
But the text is really small. If you can make it bigger, that would be.
Yep, sure, I try to. Here is 622. And yeah, as proposed here, we have a payload. The payload has a schema format and contains the schema. Therefore, I'm gone one step further and created a pull request 910 for exactly this one here. So yeah, now I need you to review and comment and see what we can do. I will do now a little introduction of it. Second. Schema. Yeah, what we have here now is this is a message object. The message object has a payload, and yeah, the payload needs to be in some kind of schema. So no, this here makes no sense. Sorry, I'm not done with all of the examples. I need to find in good one. Sorry, not very well prepared. Here we are. Yeah, here we are. It's a little bit more easier to understand. You have the payload, and the payload here has a schema format now. So I took the original schema thing and renamed it to async API schema to be able to put a new layer in between. So payload needs to be in type schema. Type schema has just two fields, the schema format and again schema. I don't know if it's the best name, but yeah, I took it. This one here is now of type any. So you can say, hey, it's an async API schema. So this one here is default. You don't need to set it. you can say, hey, those are my async API schema as defined before. So this one is the JSON schema with the extended. Or you can say, hey, it's open API schema and can whatever. Or you can just say, hey, it's protobuf. In this case, it's just a string. So it's five proto. Okay. Yeah, if I defined here protobuf 2, 3, and XML for beginning. So maybe there are other requirements or other protocols we need. Maybe not. So if soon as you have, yeah. So and generally I took what Lucas provided us here and took it one step further, because you can have with the schema inline, but in general you want using $ref within the schema, so you cannot simply tell this here anymore just only schema. This is why I come with the async API schema section with below components.
Mhm.
Everyone looks very confused.
I only have two. I have two things, but I
Yeah.
want to wait if someone wants to jump in. Otherwise, I'll take it.
I think we're all thinking the same, probably. We both
Maybe
think-
just start.
Maybe. All right. So my first one is that you're mixing two things together here. The first one is you're mixing allowing referencing to protobuf. That's a whole issue in itself. It has nothing to do with having a component section be able to reference other or having other schema formats within the component section. That's two separate issues.
Yeah, sure.
And secondly, it's what's it called? So I want to take the first one. That's the protobuf stuff, like the non-JSON reference stuff. The problem there is we don't have any standard. Like you need to change the reference object of async API. The reference object of async API doesn't allow you to reference protobuf.
Yeah, you don't talk about refs. You just talk about do it this way. You can say, okay, I have a message, I have a message, have a payload, and the payload is schema protobuf and it's text. So you can also say, here it's my proto, and then just going to be this one here, my proto. A little bit ugly.
Okay, so you're not suggesting that we actually allow referencing protobuf files?
No, this is another issue.
Okay.
This is the two, I don't remember. Just about
Okay.
components, my proto, and saying, hey, and here is this one is, sorry, this is schema my proto. I hate it. This is async. This is what I call async API schema. And here. And say, okay, where is my async API schema? Be used? Nowhere. You can say here, okay, I have channel 5, whatever. And you can say here, okay, again, don't want to remove this. I have here my component schema. This one is going to be here. Saying, okay, this I can leave that out because it's a default one. And say here $ref. And this one is going to be components. I think, okay, this is doubled, I think API schema. This one here. Then you have, so here your schema is in text, so including the protobuf thing. And in this case, schema is referencing to an async API schema. You also can inline here if you want. But we need this section here to say, again, I have here my subtype. Say here, yeah, this is why you need this. You still want to be able to have a field in your schema and reference to some subtype or whatever in your async API schema. This is why I come up with a new component called async API schema. You have all those original schema thingy within here, and all non-async API schemas are within here.
If you flip this around, it wouldn't be a breaking change, right?
Less.
Or I mean, it depends on the union type with schema format and schema, but yeah.
It would be breaking. This one here is a new level in between. It is maybe it's less breaking or less work for migrating, but it's still breaking. But yeah, I guess it was easier to find here a better name than here. This is why I choose this.
But can you why do you, I honestly don't get why you need async API schema. Why whatever you have under async API schema can't be just there under schemas? I don't see the difference.
Because schema is a map and the values have just two fields, schema format and schema.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you inline the async API object there, wouldn't that be fine?
Yeah, okay. Let me try to understand what you want. Let's call it foo. So, if just try to do it. So you want to do this one here, if I'm right.
Yeah, exactly.
Now you are able to mix schemas with different types. Do you really want to do that? Because here, this one is, if I see it right, is Avro. I don't know the real schema format here. Cannot remember. But yeah, now you say, okay, I have an async API schema, and my subtype is an Avro. You don't want that.
Yeah, but that's we talked about it, I think, in the past when Maciej was championing this idea, and he planned to actually discussed this case of like referencing different schema under the other schema format. But we said, like, in the end, it's just about writing in the spec that it's not allowed. Like, you should not mix schemas, and who would really do it? Who would mix JSON schema with Avro in the end? Like,
I have a question.
Yep.
Just to make sure I'm following. So I believe that different people in the community might want to use different kind of schemas. However, am I understanding correctly that what you're saying right now, that in the same application, you should only use one kind of schema? Is that what you're saying?
No, just for one operation.
Oh.
One channel in the old world.
Oh, okay, cool. Thanks.
So in any case, Heiko, so what you showed us before, having async API schema under components, with this example, you can still mix schema types, right? Because in the $ref, I can point to the schemas side. I can still mix, right? So that's not prevented on the other example. So that will always happen, right?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you have also to define within the schema $refs are only allowed to point to other schema refs. It's
that's one way to
Yeah, sure. If you like this one more, I agree. Just let's do it.
Yeah, at least we don't have a bunch of different weird names like async API schemas or async API schema.
And as soon as it is possible for the parser just to look here at the schema format and then handle the schema section differently, it's okay, I guess.
Yeah. Did you have a look at what Maciek proposed on I think he created a pull request in the end. I don't know.
And I don't found any pull requests.
Or maybe then it was an issue maybe. So what he proposed was probably same or very similar to this. So yeah.
No, it's actually the same, because I made the summary the last time. The only difference is that in my summary there was I did not discuss the option that schema can be also a string, like with this proto example, because I didn't care about proto then, but it makes sense, of course.
My suggestion would actually be not to mix protobuf into this suggestion. Like, in my opinion, that should be afterwards or alongside it, adding that schema format protobuf.
Yeah.
I mean, this is Jesse. I do think that it's worth considering it, because I think everybody's recognized that XML is important. Certainly, we see a lot of clients who are using XML, and then I think adding protobuf into it is another non-JSON format that's really, really important. So I think it's considering protobuf is actually important here, because it keeps us away from having a specialized solution only for XML, because there's a ton of other formats that are non-XML or non-JSON. And so this forces us to have a generalized non-JSON solution for things. So
I completely agree, by the way. I completely agree. I just don't think that we should mix adding those capabilities of non-JSON stuff into async API alongside also changing or having this conversation of how we should have schemas in components, where we couple the schema and schema format together. I don't believe that conversation should be happening at the same time, because it's too complex in my opinion.
Yeah, so conversation is one thing, but I also want to remark that this is already possible. So people can already use protobuf on the spec, right? So you just cannot use it inside component schemas, but you can go to the message payload and specify a schema format of protobuf, and then use the payload as a string, as Heiko is doing, and you can already do this, right? So inlining, it's already accepted, because
is it? Are you sure?
It is because
Yeah.
payload is of type any. It's just that our tools are not supporting it, but are not understanding it. But as per spec, this is already allowed, right? So people can.
So when you say they don't understand it, Fran, they blow up?
Yeah,
or...
they blow up. I tested.
Yeah, because it expects an object, right? A
JSON object.
An JSON object, exactly, because we're not considering other things there.
Yeah.
So
I mean, allowed is pretty. I would, if it blows up the tools, and the definition of what async API is, tool related, I would say that's probably I would stretching the meaning of working or allowed.
Yeah, no, what I mean is by spec this is allowed, but in practice this is not, because in practice it's not yet implemented, if you want, right? So we never implemented it, right? Nobody implemented it. But like many other things, like there are many other situations that might work as per spec, but they're not working well on tooling because it's not well implemented, or it's not really implemented at all. So
yeah, but I think the difference is, sorry, Fran, I think the difference here is that it's not working per spec, because it just sort of, defining it as a JSON any, but it's really not JSON at all, is really sort of twisting JSON. So it's not like it's just not implemented because we haven't gotten around to it. It's not implemented because it's really not technically sound. I think those two things are different.
But that's what Heiko is suggesting here, is still JSON. So when you see their schema and the pipe sign, this is a string.
Yeah.
This is JSON, right? Or YAML string, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But this is still JSON. So
one big difference here now is we move schema format from message level to the schema level where it belongs to. This is one big difference here.
What I mean is that this is already possible if you implement it For instance, I think you have your parser at Solaz. If you implement it in your parser, then your SNKPI documents will be able to have it, right? Because there's nothing stopping in the spec, stopping you in the spec to have schema with a string with protobuf inside, right? There's nothing stopping you that, only tools. So you only have to build a tool. That's the only thing. We didn't want to get into this, into implemented this on the tools yet, precisely for the reason that Jonas was mentioning, to not mix the conversations, right? Because we don't want to mix the conversations of this being supported alongside with $rev pointing to a protobuf file, right? Or an XSD file. So we want to separate the two things, right? And I think this is cool. I mean, in the end, I think it's cool that we can mention that you can move these things here under component schemas. Now you can have protobuf, XSD, Avro, whatever you want to have here, right? I wouldn't showcase it with XSD and protobuf yet. I will showcase it with Avro maybe, and other versions of JSON schema maybe, just to not complicate the conversation more. And then once we have $rev or rev or whatever you want to call it, support to point to protobuf or XSD documents, then we can improve the conversation or the message that we send here, that and we can showcase examples and we can implement it on the parser and so on. So yeah, just
we need it for non-JSON. So we need to add examples for non-JSON based schemas to show that it works. And the second one is I do the championship here because I need protobuf support.
Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is that it's okay to add these examples, but this specific issue was not about introducing non-JSON schema support. It was more about being able to have what we already support under component schemas. So again, I'm not against it. I'm just saying that we should probably mix this. We shouldn't mix this conversation, these two conversations, because then, and I'm saying it because of precisely, I don't know how to say it. I want to say trying to protect you, but not it's not really about to protect you, but about like to make the conversation easier. Yeah, to minimize the complexity. The one thing is about moving what we already support in tools and in everything under component schemas, and then another thing is like, okay, that's already done, that's already launched. Okay, let's put one more example now. Let's get into embedding, inlining protobuf there in the document and XSD and showcasing how you could do it. But as Jesse said before, like, yeah, if tools are not supporting it, then it's not really supported, right? So if we're gonna showcase these examples and we're not gonna support it on the parsers and all the tools, then is it really supported?
Okay, so I actually want to step in here a little bit because I feel like we're accidentally just repeating ourselves a lot. So I will say this, I completely understand that, we have a schedule to keep and we only have 26 minutes left to this meeting, so we got to stay on topic. However, this confusion brings up a very important point. We can already tell that the community in general will be confused when this starts, being discussed more and people start wanting to implement this, not just in their component schemas, but also in tooling, because people are going to ask the same questions that Jesse just asked. So what I would recommend in this scenario is we want to make sure that there's at least some basic rough documentation stating that we're branching out and allowing this and looking into this for component schema, while adding clarifying notes in the documentation that this is still in progress and not yet available and expanded to tools and parsers.
Please stop. So I'm here. I want to champion this one. So as soon as we get this one accepted and merged into Spec, I will implement it into the parser. I want to get it run. I need to get it run soon. So I'm here. I will do it. But we have to make progress and I have to make decisions.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it also, Heiko, is that you can already do it and it might be just a bug in the parser. If it is that, then you can do it already without having to change anything within the spec.
Yeah,
So
but you have defined it directly below payload, and this is what about this issue is having non-JSON schemas within the schema section. That's just what
If
this issue
that's
is about.
the case, that is the issue here. But if you're only interested in protobuf and supporting that, it doesn't matter whether it's part of the component section. You can have it a part of the message object, like in line within channels and operations.
So folks, like actually I disagree. I just checked again the spec, because in the past I had similar discussion, not about protobuf, actually about Avro, why people cannot just pass a string instead of they have to do a file, a reference or whatever. And I just checked, and the spec is pretty clear. And there's a clear example when it says, okay, payload is any, but for example, Avro should be inlined as either a YAML or JSON object, not a string to be parsed to YAML or JSON. So string is not allowed, even though we say any, but we have pretty clear message in the spec.
But that's just an example. Examples in the spec are not.
It's not an example. It's a text that describes payload field. It's a rule in the spec.
It mentions explicitly Avro because Avro is JSON. That's the thing. It's not JSON schema, but it's JSON.
But it still could be parsed into JSON. Why not?
Right. But in contrast, the proto, which can't, or XML, which can't.
What we say there on the spec is, don't put it as a string, because you can put it as a full JSON object there. So don't make it a string that we will have to parse. We're just telling people, hey, this is how you should be using it. But that doesn't apply to all the other formats. If you want to inline protobuf as a string, you can inline this as a string, because you cannot inline protobuf as JSON, because protobuf is not JSON.
Right, exactly, which is the whole problem. So I mean, I think
exactly.
I think that's a bit waving our hands. Like I think if it really wasn't a problem to just inline Avro, we would have just said go ahead and add inline Avro. But the problem is, I think I'm with Heiko and with Lucas that I think there is a significant problem with it. And I don't know if it's necessarily even at a, just the tooling doesn't support it. I feel like when we say any, JSON any, we're implying that it's a JSON object and it just sort of bombs. I'm skeptical whether it's a simple tooling fix.
Yeah, no, it's only a spec thing too. The spec says, yeah, only JSON or YAML based is allowed, but there are examples putting in strings and things like this. So the spec is not consistent at the moment. And yeah, we need here real any support. This is what I try to achieve. Having here real any support.
And it doesn't matter if it's Proto or Avro.
Guys, so one thing, you can never have real any support there, because then it stops being a valid YAML or valid JSON document. You will have to embed all this string inside the JSON string or a YAML string.
Yeah, sure, as a string. And the schema format defines how those strings will be passed.
And a string is valid JSON. A string is valid JSON. Are we confusing JSON with JSON objects? Because I don't mean that. A number is valid JSON. A Boolean is valid JSON.
Yeah.
A string is valid JSON. So if you have a string with that syntax proto thing inside, that's valid JSON. That's okay. That's completely valid JSON. What I'm suggesting here is that, and it's on the spec, right? If it's not consistent for whatever reason, we can fix it. But what I mean is that you can you can do it like this, like the example that you showed here, and this will be still JSON. This is a JSON object. It's just what the pipe sign in YAML is just telling the YAML parser to convert it to a string, to a multi-line string, right? So when we convert it back to YAML, this is going to be a single line, a string with a single line with lots of /n at the end, right, for the multi-line and all stuff. And what I mean is that it's going to be serialized as JSON, right? Because that's what the spec supports. Because if we don't serialize it as JSON and we just drop it there, then it stops being, the whole document stops being a valid JSON file or a valid YAML file. That's my point. You have to put it inside strings.
Yeah, sure.
For now,
Okay.
there's no other way. That's my point.
Yeah,
That's
totally
really
okay. But what I a little bit fear is if you write the spec JSON or spec YAML, whatever how you call it, you will face a problem because we link now spec format and the expected schema type. So in case of protobuf, we expect a string to be a protobuf. If it's async API schema, we expect here an object structure in async API schema format. So is that possible to spec?
Heiko, when you're saying that it doesn't work or it crashes, are you referring to Studio? Or
no,
any other tool?
The async API spec YAML or spec JSON you create. The spec of the spec, so not the text one, the machine readable one. Is that possible to?
It allows it. Like the only thing we validate on payload is true, and in JSON schema that's any JSON value. So from the JSON schema spec side, it's valid. Studio, for example, only supports, I can't remember, 3 schema formats. If it doesn't understand your schema format, it gives you an error, like saying you cannot do this.
Yeah, sure.
For example, in this case with protobuf, it would just say, nope, can't do it. But it is possible if you create your own tooling, or if you change Studio or parser, etc., and adding a parser that understands it, then it's supported.
You need a schema parser. That's the thing. You need a protobuf schema parser. And right now, nowadays, as it is right now, without adding or altering the spec at all, you can create a protobuf schema parser, inline the whole protobuf file inside string, as you're doing here, and that will work. It's not going to work on Studio because, I mean, you will have to include it yourself in Studio.
Sure.
But it's gonna, we can make it work in Studio without changing the spec. That's my point, right? Because
but they have to be in defined schema format.
But forget about component schemas. What I mean is inside message payload. If you do this inside message payload, as it is right now, that's going to work. So if you really need that urgently for protobuf to work, don't wait for this. Go and make it on inside message payload, specify schema format there, and the payload to be a protobuf file. Implement the tool that you need. We can add it to the parser. We can add an experimental parser, something like that, and that will work. That the issue at hand here is not about supporting non-JSON schemas, or not non-JSON schemas, right? So it's not about. It's about keep supporting, let's say, only JSON schema, because it's still, as it is, right, a JSON-based schemas, but under component schemas, right?
Yeah.
So it is not about the protobuf or anything. Like then, as Jonas was saying, if we keep mixing the conversation, then look at this. For instance, we should be discussing if we structure this like this or like that, but instead we're discussing about protobuf here, when we shouldn't be discussing protobuf today. It will be about something else.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's my point. But it's normal. It's because the conversation gets really complex and entangled, and then it's like it's complicated to understand and to clarify what we mean, right? So this issue shouldn't be about protobuf or XSD. It should be about moving what we already support in the tools and everywhere, right? To under components and schemas, and then we can create another one and say like, okay, so now that it's under component schemas, let's start showcasing, or as Alejandra said, for instance, let's make it clear. Now, it was possible before, now it's even more possible because you can reuse, you can inline things here like protobuf and XSD, but our tools are not supporting it yet. So yeah, it's still in the works, right? So so we can be clear about it, but
so wrapping up, if we need to do the docs as well before this gets out of hand, Heiko, do you think you have a kind of understanding on the objectives we have set?
Yep, sure.
Okay.
I have a question. Just want to make sure that I support and help as much as I can. So to that end, will, for example, Jonas and Heiko start writing the first rough drafts related to Spec 3 documentation? Do you want me to start working on it with you? How can I best support this?
Let's take it in 1 second, Alejandro. Just 1 second. I just want to clean up this agenda item, and then we take docs.
Okay.
And take all the discussion there.
Okay, yeah, I will change my proposal, my pull request to just have this schema section and see if it will work or not work. So if I can write it, then yeah, I need you to review the pull request and start discussions there. What is okay, what's not okay, what we want.
Makes sense. And just ping us on Slack as well as you make the update.
Yeah.
Any questions or anything else for this agenda item?
Yeah, was just want to discuss, where's that one? The two something. The two too much issues. Damn. Yeah, I found this one here. This is what it's all about. Referring to Avro schemas was already defined in 2.0 of Async API. Just
Because
wondering why
JSON.
there is this 244, I guess. So it was spec. Why is the discussion here? For the external links. This one here is linking to an Avro file.
It's just JSON.
Yeah, that's completely fine.
Nope, as I understand the JSON reference document or request for comment correctly, it's only allowed to ref to other Async API specs, not to complete external specs.
As long as it's JSON reference doesn't care as far.
It's just JSON, yeah. It's just JSON.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where the problem is with referencing XSD or protobuf, for example. That's our only issue with JSON reference.
That's completely fine. So JSON reference, JSON pointer, sorry. No, JSON reference is one thing, JSON pointer is another thing. So JSON references are allowed to include there before the hashtags or the pound sign.
Yeah.
Before that, you can have a URL or a file, like it can be whatever you want, something that, a resolvable address if you want. Can be.
Yeah, sure, send.
Yeah, it can be file : / whatever. That's actually, this is pretty common. And the last part, the JSON pointer, like hashtag user create, it's because the resulting, that JSON file that you're pointing there, because it's an Avro file, but it's Avro is JSON, as I said.
Yeah.
So it has a key called user create, and you want to specifically point to this user create, not the whole document, right? So yeah, that's completely valid. Maybe it doesn't make a lot of sense, but yeah, it's fully valid.
Okay.
I'm gonna suggest that let's start a meeting only for discussing this protobuf stuff, non-JSON stuff. I'm gonna propose a meeting for either next week or next week again, and then let's just discuss only that, because it's just a huge code. So yeah, let's do that.
Sure.
I'm gonna make sure to schedule it.
Yeah, and I will just ensure that this link thing here is not a breaking one, because I cannot wait for 4.0.
That depends on how much it takes us to get to 4.
Yeah.
If it's 1 month after.
Yeah.
No, that's not.
Let's discuss it there. But yeah, don't.
Okay.
All right, docs. Moving on. So regarding documentation, so we have. I'm just gonna start it off, and then feel free to jump in. So I just outlined all of the major changes we did. So we have request reply, we have some decoupling of operations and channels, We have a new operation action, so we change the perspective. We have some unified reference behavior, where instead of using a simple string, we use $ref. We have some common metadata fields that's been added. We have moved some properties around. Then we split out a property into 2 parts. And then we added some more reusable objects within component section. Then there's still the proposal of changing how traits behave. And the same with this schema format within component section. But those 2 last ones are still not finalized, so it's hard to discuss docs around them.
What I want to do is, because I want to help get the process as organized as possible. So what I'll do today, for example, because I'm assuming you haven't created issues for this yet, is I want to create the GitHub version of an epic for Spec 3 documentation. And then inside that epic issue, I will outline all of these tasks that you have already documented here. And I will refrain from adding the last 2, because you just mentioned that you're still up in discussion about whether or not we're going to include this with the Spec 3 release. So after you confirm, we can add those extra tasks. And then we can work individually on each task and, start writing, editing, whatever. So I will do that today, and I will tag, I'm assuming minimum Jonas and Heiko. Heiko, can you please give me your GitHub handle here in the chat? That'll help me find you easily. And who else should I tag in there?
Just tag it. Oh, that's better. I was about to say just tag channel in Slack, but don't do that.
What is wrong with you?
Don't do that.
You want everyone to hate me. Oh, Green Rover.
Yeah.
Cool. That's easy to remember. Okay, cool. I'll tag Green Rover and Jonas. And who else do you want me to tag?
Whoever wants to be tagged.
Fran? Okay. Lucas, do you want me to tag you, I assume?
I watch anyway any issue that is created in the website, so you don't have to.
That's true. You're like stalking my every move. What is Alejandro doing today?
Yes, exactly.
Stalking everyone. That's the problem.
Okay. Does anyone else in this current call want me to tag them specifically, or no? Okay, good. So I'll do that today to start. And then I just wanted to confirm, because I want to make sure that I do my best to try to help this effort. So I want to understand how it can be the most helpful, useful. Do you want to start writing the documentation and then loop me in? Do you want me to start writing it with you? What do you want?
I think we should, I would suggest that we start by figuring out what changes need to be done for what changes in the spec, because I have a feeling that it varies a lot where and how we adapt the documentation. Because, for example, request reply, that's a whole new feature. It might need a whole new section in the documentation. It might need, like it hasn't been described before, for example. So there's probably not a lot of changes that need to happen. But for example, for a change of perspective with, like with this new operation action and decoupling of operation channels, I'm assuming there's a lot of already existing docs we need to change. So I have a feeling we have to go through each one of them, create an issue where each actionable item is, like each change needs to happen in order to split them up even more. And
yeah,
then,
that's what I'm going to do. Each one of these is going to be a task converted to an issue.
Yeah, but I have a feeling you need more than one.
For each one.
feature.
Oh, that's what you're saying. Your subtasks to the tasks. I don't even know if GitHub does that.
So you might have an
Sub-task?
epic, sub-epic, and
Oh,
issues or tasks.
Okay,
Or
we'll see.
like just double, like basically
Do more than one pull request in each task.
I don't think it's, in case of docs, it's better, it's good to follow this structure. I think it's more to follow the structure of the docs, because like in the end, like when you're gonna fix some tutorial, it may touch to different topics from the list as well. So so like basically looking from the docs perspective and the content buckets that we have there, might be that in case of concepts, there's not much to change. The only things are additions, maybe concept of
Yes.
request reply.
Yes.
If it comes to tutorials, there's going to be a lot of change because there are tutorials that guide you through the async API document. So the flow of the getting started, that's for sure something that will have to be changed. So then it's probably one ticket or one issue, or like one issue per document. So that's why I'm saying that it's not necessarily this what is now shared on the screen will be super useful for you in the structure of the issues. That's what I meant.
So what I think is honestly pretty similar to what you just described. I don't really know that we need to see if GitHub has the ability in their UI for subtasks, sub-epic. I more think that each one of these points correlate to changes we need to make. And there could be, as you know, we just discussed, each point could be 5 changes. Maybe one point is only 1 change. Like, we don't know. So I think that each task converted to an issue will probably have more than 1 pull request in different areas that we're changing. But I think that, you know, just to keep things organized, I think that everyone will understand that this issue is specifically for any changes to request reply functionality, and that could be tutorials, concepts, etc. The spec for sure. So I think that's the most organized thing to do.
Would it make sense to have a recurring only docs meeting for Spec 3.0, or does it make sense to just do it here?
I mean, I feel like I can it's probably best to just join so that we don't have extra meetings unless somebody really thinks we need an extra meeting. I mean, if you think it's helpful and you want me to join until the next few months, you know, I can do that.
I mean, the thing is that there's not that much that we need to discuss on this meeting here that is related to Spec 3.0 and technical like discussions. So it might make sense just to do it here. I don't know.
What about this concept of of the office hours you had? That
yes,
post these meetings, we actually should have regular office hours so people can jump in, ask questions, what changes are coming in. So docs could be also addressed, because like, especially that like Alejandra will not solve all our issues. Alejandra will guide, I bet, a lot of community members that will contribute. So having an open regular meeting, it's also going to be a good place for these contributors that are not, for example, today on the meeting, that they will be able to jump in and ask any questions they want. Like, for example, like, hey, I got a task from Alejandra and I'm going to work on whatever document AB, any guidance. And then we can, like, we share what we know. It's recorded. It's good input for docs. So that's why I think this office hours would be, like, regular office hours would be good.
Oh, yeah, I see your point. I mean, yeah, I guess also the nice thing about it, doing it that way, is that it helps recruit more contributors for docs, which is, of course, great community building efforts. I mean, yeah, sure, I'll help I can't think, it's too early. Words. I can join a new meeting to help out, and I guess just let me know when I'm more awake what you need from me for those meetings.
I guess the question comes down to, is this too early, Alejandra? Because like, if we keep this specific meeting, it will be the same time.
Oh no, 9 is great. 9 is great. I just have you know, a lot of dogs. They keep me busy.
All right, let's try to keep it in this meeting then, and then slowly transition this meeting into a community discussion type thing where people can get help with Spec 3.0 changes.
So does to make sure I understood you correctly, my follow through is to simply join you in the next Spec 3 meeting? Okay.
Yeah, let's set another for the next meeting. Let's set a doc agenda status update stuff.
Okay, cool. And like I mentioned earlier, today I'll be adding all of this in an epic and tasks to clarify and help us organize work. This is exciting. Spec 3 felt like so far away when I first joined, and now it's coming. I can't believe it.
Yep, that's true. All right, we're almost out of time.
Me neither.
Any last remarks?
Yeah, just final link again from the content buckets perspective of the docs. in case of reference docs, like, so for your information, Alejandra, we already like published this pre-release async API spec.
Oh yeah, I already saw
there
that.
already. Oh yeah, cool. So yeah.
Ha ha ha! Can't get anything by me. Well, no, you can. You just have to get up earlier than me.
Any other last remarks before ending the call?
No, just one thing. I'm gonna add one more thing to the Spec 3.0 now that I'm realizing. So one more change, just to prevent 4.0 to happen 3 months later. So if at some point we want to have protobuf and XSD reference support, then we probably should not use $ref. We should use something else, right? So I'm going to propose that except inside JSON schemas, everywhere else where we use $ref, we rename it to ref, for instance, without $. So it's just our ref, not the JSON schema, schema ref, $ref. So we define the behavior. We will.
Why do you want to take that into the discussion now? I don't understand.
No. Just saying that I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna propose this because I think it's gonna be important. So yeah.
But in order to answer that question, you have to take into account the other standards that are being proposed as well.
Why? No.
Because you can't, dude. We have a freeze period. Stop. No more changes.
No, I'm not gonna add
contain yourself, dude. Stop.
No. Wait, sorry.
That's right, Jonas. Stay strong. Don't let him. You gotta stay strong.
I probably didn't explain it correctly. Sorry. So what I mean is not so much about new behavior or anything like that. Just renaming it, right? So in the future, it doesn't break. That's it. So same behavior, same everything. Everything's the same. Just not called $ref. That's it. It's gonna be a lot of problems in tooling. I'm anticipating it.
The freeze period haven't even taken effect it haven't even been an hour and you're already changing it. I love it. This is gonna be so good, dude.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to prevent us to release version 4 in I don't know, in September. So yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Let's see Frank's proposal, and otherwise I'll see you next time. Thanks for participating. Bye-bye.